G'day guys and gal. If it wasn't obvious, I'm not a very serious person. Most of the things I do or say, my intention is to make someone laugh and or lighten the mood. However, I'm putting on my serious face today to talk about the most ballistic, hectic duel in all of fiction. Two demigods meeting, the fate of the galaxy itself hanging in the balance, a father and son meeting at the climax of a 64-book series, and man did it not disappoint. I just finished the End and Death Part 3 last night, and I knew I had to read this fight firsthand to be able to make a video on it, because it's extremely complicated. The Emperor and Horus fight on multiple planes of existence simultaneously, and I bet those of you who have actually read it still don't really know what the fuck happened. So I thought I would clear things up and dive into what could be the most hectic duel in all of fiction. Before we get started, today is the day. The Big EV2 has officially launched and is available for pre-sale access right now. How do you get pre-access and why would you want it? Pre-access is for Big EV1 purchases as well as members of Dice Dioramas. Pre-access means you get your Biggie sent to you faster, and it means you have first pick of the limited edition Big E models, such as the 112 scale, 1/6 scale, and the pre-painted Big Es. Not only that, but you will have a discount on everything except the pre-painted Big E. So much winning. So if you didn't get the Big EV1, then you can join Dice and get instant access for as little as $10 a month, which if you then take into consideration the discount you get from that, means your bronze membership is basically free, and it also enters you into winning the Big E Mount Ararat diorama amongst thousands more in other prizes. Seriously, just become a Dice member, trust me. The Big EV2 itself is massively improved over Big EV1, featuring better proportions, new and improved details, 3 new epic helmet variants, and many more improvements. The tabletop scale is perfect for your wargaming needs. The art scale is for those of you that want larger details to paint, and is the good scale for entering into something like a competition. Or you just want to play him on tabletop anyway because Big E was a big boy. Then there is the 112 scale, which is like a statue, very chunky boy, before we then get to the Goliath 1/6 scale for the collectors of you out there, since we're only going to be making 20 of these. These are live right now for Dice members and Big EV1 purchases. Link is below. Today we'll go over the duel between Horus and the Emperor, detailing how it was fought, the lead up to it, how the Emperor was ultimately victorious, and the consequences of the fight itself. Let's get into it. Something that a lot of people don't really realize is that when the Webway project failed at the end of Master of Mankind, the Emperor was like, fuck, and basically just winged it from then on out. Sure, he made a bunch of contingencies, such as the Talisman of 7 Hammers, Malkador as a backup battery for the Golden Throne, and the Grey Knights, but he didn't actually want to use any of these. Nor did he think he would need to. To be honest, these were mostly Malkador's contingencies that the Emperor agreed with and helped implement. When the Webway project failed, the Emperor basically just said, "Cowabunga it is." Reading the future became nearly impossible during the heresy due to all the warp flux and time freeze shenanigans. Even the Thousand Sons Cabal of Future Seers were like, "Fuck me, we can't see shit, dude." There was like a gazillion prophecies all floating around, cancelling each other out. And even the guaranteed futures ended up crumbling, so the Emperor had no idea what was going to happen next. Towards the end of the siege, the Loyalists were desperate. Terra was submerged in the warp, traders were attacking from all angles, there was gigantic mega demons everywhere. Once the first traders managed to enter the palace, the lifespan of the Imperium was measured in hours and minutes, not days, which was the original expectation. I mean shit, time technically froze so counting became meaningless, but you get what I mean. Hence when Horus lowered the shields of the Vengeful spirit to bait the Emperor into attacking, the Loyalists were desperate enough to send the Emperor, Rogel Dawn, Sanguinius, and Valdor to take down the War Master, each of them bringing their own retinue of elite warriors. The idea was that this strike team would teleport together, smash their way through enemy resistance, and then basically just gangbang Horus. However, no one actually knew how powerful Horus had become by this point. Horus actually deliberately gave himself retardation during the heresy to make his mind and power impossible for the Emperor to read. He scattered his consciousness across the warp and only drew it back together at the end of the siege. This is why he was so useless and spastic for most of the heresy. He literally lobotomized himself. If he hadn't done that, the Emperor would have detected how overpowered Horus was and wouldn't have struck at the Vengeful spirit. Horus immediately ruined the Emperor's plan by scattering each part of the strike force so they all arrived in different places. The Emperor arrived with his Heteron guard at the farthest point from Horus that he could, most of whom then got mind controlled and attacked their own Emperor, forcing the Emperor to kill most of his best warriors. Rogel got teleported into a pocket dimension, controlled by Khorne, where he was then trapped for centuries, with his warriors being teleported into a nearby pocket dimension where they were then killed by hordes of demons. Valdor and his men were immediately attacked by an endless tide of demons, while Sanguinius was the only one who arrived where he was supposed to arrive. Basically, the plan was for Sanguinius to reach Horus first so Horus could try convert him to chaos alone. In the meantime, Rogel was supposed to fall to Khorne in the pocket dimension, and Valdor was to be killed by demons, or beaten into an inch of his life and then taken to Horus to be corrupted as well. The Emperor was supposed to be the last to arrive, hence ANC was put the furthest away and had the biggest obstacles thrown at him. Now, upon arriving and having to kill a lot of his own custodians, the Emperor finally realizes Horus's power, and it was way higher than what he expected. He also gets mad as hell for having to kill his own favorite men. Thus, the Emperor begins absorbing a shitload of warp energy into himself. This begins to transform him into the Dark King, the 5th Chaos God, who would easily be powerful enough to kill Horus, but as a result of that, would usher in an age of ruin where everything would be destroyed. Now, the Emperor was being a bit naive. He believed that he could just absorb a bunch of power, kill Horus, and then let it go and it would all be chill. But the idea of the Dark King was a bit dramatic. But he was being delusional. The Emperor was literally burning so bright that he killed nearly all of his custodians without realizing it just with his aura. It was only when he was confronted by Alanis Person, his oldest friend, where he finally reflected, realized the Dark King wasn't the solution, and let go of his power, the shockwave of which freed Rogel and restored many of his allies back to health. The Emperor was now at the peak of his mortal power, but it was still mortal, not immortal. He then sent Alanius and John away while he, his last custodian, Garviel Loken, and Litu, who was the first prototype space marine, went onwards to fight Horus. When the Emperor gave up the Dark King power, he also removed the part of himself that was full of compassion and emotion and cast it into the warp. This would later be known as the Star Child, making the Star Child actually canon. He did this because he knew he would witness some pretty dark, sad shit designed to break his focus, and he couldn't let his focus slip for even a second if he wanted to stand a chance of winning. When he finally arrives and confronts Horus, he first sees Sanguinius' corpse. Horus is surprised to see that the Emperor seems unaffected by the scene, which was designed to shake him. Horus speaks to the Emperor, hoping he submits and joins him as he doesn't want to kill his father. The Emperor ignores Horus and speaks to the Chaos Gods directly, enraging Horus, who begins the fight by firing a death beam of fuck you power at the Emperor. This begins burning and hurting the Emperor. Horus is then shocked when Garviel, Litu, and the Custodian attack him, not because their attack is effective, but because such weak beings would have the courage to do so. He's especially upset that Garviel is turned against him. Horus knocks them all away, but before he can kill them, the Emperor charges him and the two demigods clash, the shockwave of which sends all of our heroes flying away. Garviel is knocked into a pocket dimension designed to slow him down, so he doesn't witness Horus kill the Emperor. The Custodian is wounded but stays in the normal dimension, and Litu is okay and chooses to protect Sanguinius' corpse from scavenging demons, which are trying to eat it. Now, the fight makes it abundantly clear that Horus is significantly more powerful than the Emperor. When they first clash, the Emperor is knocked back. Horus stands his ground. Although the fight starts mostly equal, it's shown that the Emperor's power is great but finite. Every trick and ability he uses costs him, whereas Horus's power is infinite. Horus keeps saying, it's not the Emperor's power that makes him great, it's how he uses it. While Horus is brute forcing everything, the Emperor is weaving scheme after scheme. It's actually pretty hilarious. The Emperor literally uses every trick, cheap shot, and low blow he possibly can. Now, the fight gets a bit silly sometimes and hard to follow, saying shit like, the Emperor dodges the attack by slipping into the 12th dimension, allowing him to bypass Horus's guard and strike him from the 7th angle of despair. Just shit like that. It's also made clear that the Emperor is made up of many aspects, all fighting as one, whilst Horus is just Horus, all of his power focused on himself. During the start of the fight, the Emperor and Horus's souls are split up into countless dimensions, each fighting their own duel. In some dimensions, Horus is winning, in others, the Emperor is winning. This seems to have been the Emperor's way to try figure out how best to beat Horus, basically allowing him to run various simulations. However, it seems like Horus was winning almost all of them. In the main one, Horus beats the Emperor, but the Emperor pulls a fast one and slips away. Horus chases him through time and space, thinking the Emperor is nearly dead, only for the Emperor to ambush him and clap his ass, which Horus then quickly recovers from. Eventually, all aspects and dimensional battles reconverge back into the main duel, with the Emperor's energy being nearly spent. Horus begins dragging the Emperor to a Chaos Throne, intending on impaling him on it and forcing him to watch the rise of Horus, maybe even be corrupted. The Emperor is leaning on Horus, one hand on Horus's chest. Horus thinks it's a fatherly gesture of love. See, Horus is extremely delusional during this fight. He is confused why people keep opposing him, and he thinks that they're all stupid. He believes that if he just shows them the truth, they would join him. However, the Emperor wasn't acting fatherly, he was actually draining Horus's power, which he then uses to recharge himself and renew the fight. Time and time again, Horus beats the shit out of the Emperor, only for the Emperor to draw on some vestige of power, or the thing that Horus just beat was just an aspect of himself, not the true version. It was really pissing Horus off. There was one part of the fight where I genuinely laughed out loud. It's when the Emperor is extremely wounded and is holding the Chaos Crown Horus made for him. Horus walks over to him, thinking the fight is done, only for the Emperor to then smash Horus in the face with the crown, splitting open Horus's head and splattering his brains. It was so unexpected and petty, which is why it was so fucking funny. Now, that does sound like a pretty fatal blow, but as said, Horus was literally unkillable, so his body easily reknit itself. Time and time again, the Emperor would keep on fighting, well past when you thought he was done, whether it be because the Astronomicon got relit, re-energizing him, or because everyone on Terra began praying to him, which also re-energized him. But each time he was re-energized, Horus was still too strong. There was a moment where the Emperor even had the upper hand and was hunting Horus, which resulted in the Emperor and Horus playing a card game. They basically played Paradox Billiards Voistrian Roulette 4th Dimensional Hypercube Chess Strip Poker from the TTS series. I'm not even kidding. Now the Emperor is really good at this game, but Horus had invented his own bullshit overpowered deck, which seemed to counter the Emperor at every turn, which allowed Horus to then smack the Emperor in the face with Worldbreaker, the most devastating hit of the entire fight due to the symbolism behind it, which signaled the beginning of the end of the fight. Horus really wanted to put the Emperor on the Chaos throne. In return, the Emperor really wanted to piss Horus off enough so that Horus would just kill him instead, a fate that would be much better for the galaxy than having a Chaos corrupted Emperor nailed to a throne. This is part of the reason why the Emperor was playing so dirty. He did it so Horus would want to kill him. The Emperor is given one last chance to gather his strength. When John and Alanius return to his side, John hits Horus with a word of Annuncia, a hit so strong it sends Horus flying 40 meters back and landing on his back. It literally takes a minute or two for Horus to stand back up. In the meantime, Alanius gives the Emperor a special stone knife, which is the only thing in the galaxy that could kill Horus due to the symbolism of the knife. Alanius then tries to buy the Emperor as much time as possible, but is then turned into a powdered red mist by one strike from Horus. All the Emperor can do to acknowledge his friend, since he is so wounded, is give him a guardsman card, a final way of acknowledging him. With Alanius gone, Horus grabs the Emperor and drags him forward. Garviel finally breaks free of his pocket dimension and begs Horus not to kill the Emperor. Horus is like, "Fuck you," and smashes the Emperor's skull, killing his father. Garviel is shocked, but then tells Horus that now he has fulfilled his purpose, he doesn't need all of this chaos power anymore. He can let it go and rule his empire as Horus Lupercal, not as a puppet of chaos. After some argument, Horus agrees. He lets go of his power, which really pisses Chaos off, but then he realizes he was tricked. Garviel isn't actually Garviel. The real Garviel is unconscious a few meters away. Garviel turns into the Emperor, and now it's time for their final fight. It's like that scene from the end of the Dragon Ball Super Tournament of Power, where both Goku and Jiren are so spent that they are now just fighting in their raw base forms. The Emperor desperately launches himself at Horus for the final time. Horus tries to reabsorb the power, but Chaos won't give it back easily. They want Horus to suffer the Emperor's onslaught as a punishment for spurning their gifts. See, despite everything, the Emperor still cannot kill Horus. As they fight, Horus still really fucks the Emperor up, popping one of his eyes, tearing out his throat, and just really fucking his shit up. In return, the Emperor shoots a laser beam from his remaining eye that fucks Horus up, but the beams finally also show Horus what he has become and what he has done. He realizes he was just this puppet to doom humanity. He realizes he has ruined mankind's chance for a golden age, and he sees himself how the loyalists see him. He suddenly craves the sweet release of death, but he can feel the Chaos power returning and it freaks him out. And he freaks out, not wishing to return to his previous demigod form. That is when the Emperor produces the stone knife. Horus is dismayed, thinking that there is no way this tiny stone knife can end his life. But Chaos freaks the fuck out, realizing what's about to happen. It suddenly begins rapidly pouring its power back into Horus in a desperate attempt to retake control. The Emperor looks at Horus sadly, hesitating mere seconds before it's too late, and says, "I wait for you, and I forgive you," before plunging the stone knife into Horus's heart. It parts Horus's armor like clay and kills him instantly, Horus dying with a smile on his face, glad it was finally all over. Now some people are confused by what the Emperor meant by his final words. The forgive is clearly for Horus, the final words a son hears from his father, especially as the Emperor knows Horus was merely a tool. The wait for you is either the Emperor saying that they will one day meet again, or it was a direct challenge to the Chaos Gods, saying he will wait for them next time they want to try some shit. The Chaos Gods had poured an obscene amount of power into Horus, and used him as their anchor. With Horus dead, the Chaos Gods were violently torn back into the warp, suffering considerable damage during it. The warp was almost immediately banished from the Sol system, causing all demons to instantly burn and perish, and also completely shattering the morale of the traders. Time that was frozen restarted in violent fashion, and a ton of people died. The traders were mauled so badly by the shock of Horus's death and the vicious counterattack of the loyalists that the majority of them died. It's said that if there was only 30% more loyalists alive on Terra, not a single trader would have survived to flee off-world. The Emperor himself was so brutalized from the fight. Many of his aspects were killed and his physical body was ruined. He maybe could have recovered, however he needed to be put on the Golden Throne to make sure it didn't overload and destroy everything. Even if the Emperor won cleaner, he still would be forced to stay on the Golden Throne, so either way he was in for a bit of a shit one. I cannot overstate how much the death of Horus fucked up Chaos, because they had invested so much into him. When he died, his death meant that they wouldn't really be a true threat to the galaxy for nearly 10,000 more years. It's also just so hilarious realizing that Horus was way more powerful than the Emperor, but the Emperor was just such a sneaky shit who threw out any concept of honor and respect, and basically just aimed for Horus's metaphorical balls the entire fight. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up a Big EV2 via either joining Dice Dioramas or having bought a Big EV1. Check your emails to see how to access it. Any issues, just let me or the team know. Join the Discord for more memes on us in the next one. Peace.